You bet I would absolutely love to do this, because I have followed WILPF for a long time and been aware that this is an organization that shares a transformative vision, the same kind of transformative vision of where we need to go that I believe in, that Yes Magazine stands for, and the fit between what I would want to honor here and what you do is so perfect that it was a real easy yes. As I have been with you over these last couple of days, one of the things that's really impressed me are the people coming to these various sessions down in Carver Hall or McNeil Hall with walkers and with canes. How many of you have a walker or a cane? Yes, you. You know what I love about that is it just tells me you are unstoppable. So I am absolutely delighted to be considered among the dangerous women, and absolutely delighted to be here with WILPF. And as I've mingled with these various members and heard the stories of courage over the years, I'm just even ever more deeply impressed, because this is an organization born of a vision, not of marginal change, not of marginal reform, but of transformation. There aren't many organizations like that. This is an organization that knew that we have a country that is organized for war, and it needs to be organized for peace. We have a system that is organized for injustice, and it needs to be organized to recognize the dignity of every human being. We have a system that's organized to exploit, consume, poison, and pile up garbage, and we need to be organized as an ecological system in which there is no waste. That's the transformational vision that I share with all of you here, and that we at Yes Magazine work to spread into every corner of our society as people can see the ways in which we need to change, not at the margin, but in really substantial, deep ways. On a pivotal moment in my own life, days in my life, back in 1991. We were living in the Philippines at that time, had been in Southeast Asia for almost 15 years. We were doing a variety of kinds of work to help empower local people, particularly farmers, helping them get access to land and water, and strengthen local communities to be able to use those resources sustainably, and have the kind of local organization that enables people to work together and advance both their own dignity and prosperity and also their own power. But at the same time, as we were doing this kind of work, there were other forces that were doing the opposite. So as we were trying to get people land and water and power, there were other forces that were displacing people with resorts, plantations, golf courses, sweatshops. And those forces were, of course, driven by a set of institutions and policies that we once thought would be helpful to poor people, but were turning out to be yet another form of colonialism. And those, of course, were institutions like the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the trade agreements that were all designed to bring foreign capital, foreign ownership, foreign power back into countries, some of which were freshly independent, and regain the kind of colonial control that had once existed through governments. So in 1991, our Asian friends told us, you know, we love working with you, but if you really want to help our people, go home. Go home and change your country. And in 1992, we arrived just as Clinton and Gore had clinched that nomination, and we were thrilled. Wow, we had read Earth in the Balance. Oh God, a vice president who actually understands global warming. That's quite something. And of course, as tends to happen, we were soon deeply disappointed when we saw that administration pushing NAFTA, the absolute essence of unsustainability, of injustice. We were apoplectic. We saw the kind of dysfunction that we had watched in other people's country coming full force into this country. And the progressive establishment was asleep at the wheel. The courage of the people who showed up in Seattle gave courage to the people on the inside. The people from India, and the people from Brazil, and the people from Ethiopia, and the people from Thailand. It gave them the courage to stand up to the powerful countries and say, we do not agree with this version of how to run the world. That was a grassroots victory of the first order. And I see a direct line between what happened in Seattle and something that WILPF did back in 1944 and 45. That was at the time of the formation of the United Nations. And I'm sure for many people forming that institution, they thought of it as government to government. So this is for bureaucrats, this is for politicians, this is for appointed people, and we are a government to government organization. WILPF was there standing for the fact that non-governmental organizations have a crucial role to play. Because after all, the folks in power are trapped by the systems of power. And if outside voices are not there, they are not going to do much. Now, what I see that leading to is these large meetings of the 1990s. The first big one, of course, being in Rio de Janeiro, the Earth Summit, that were promoted by the non-governmental organizations. And then, of course, Beijing in 1995. And yes, how many were in Beijing? How many were in Rio? You know the feeling of those conferences, which seems to me marked the real beginning of a consciousness of global civil society as a force in the world. That was a consciousness that WILPF had way back in 1915. The notion that you could get people together, ordinary citizens, women who didn't even have the vote, and that they could somehow help shape history. Well, that global consciousness is what produced a great many protests around the world, and then culminated with the protests in Seattle. And it had this lasting effect.